Well, the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee says the U.S. and President Trump have given up America's influence on the world stage to China. New Hampshire Senator Jeanne Shaheen joins us tonight on set to talk about that and other things. Senator, thanks for being here.
Nice to be here.
So the message is you think that we have been pulling back in the wrong places and giving advantage to China.
That's right. Since I've been in the Senate, I think there has been bipartisan agreement that the biggest threat to the United States, both economically and militarily, is from China. I think that's been the position of President Trump and the Trump administration. But unfortunately, I think many of the policies that the Trump administration has pursued since the president took office undermine our ability to have that, as I said, coherent strategy and consistent messaging to stay ahead of China.
And this report kind of details that. This is a report by the Democrats on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the price of retreat. And you make some recommendations here. Rebuild foreign aid capacity, restore U.S. global leadership, strengthen trade and industrial base, secure mineral supply chains with allies, invest in global talent. You're saying that's not happening now?
I think many of the decisions that have been made have undermined our efforts to do those things.
Like
For example, the effort to rethink the Millennium Challenge Corporation, something that was started under President George W. Bush. It has been very successful. There is now an effort to stop many of those projects. There's one in Indonesia that has been the most significant MCC project, and yet it's on hold right now because of policies by this administration. Indonesia, as we know, is the fourth most populous country in the world. It's very important as we think about the challenges that we face in the Indo-Pacific. It's important for us to continue a strategy that engages the countries in the Indo-Pacific, and rolling back the most significant project of the Millennium Challenge Corporation is not the way to do that.
You know, President Trump cites his relationship with Indonesia and talking trade and doing a deal. Another thing you mentioned is
we haven't done a deal yet.
Right, but he's touting it. He's saying it's coming. USAID, you say that pullback has hurt us overall. July 1st, USAID officially rolled over essentially to the State Department, and Marco Rubio talked about that. In part, this comes from the DOJ concerns and some of the abuse allegations that we saw and heard from during that time. $1.5 million for DEI programs in Serbia, $47,000 for transgender opera in Colombia, $2 million.
That actually is incorrect. That
is
stat? Yes, that did not happen.
The opera?
The opera.
Okay. Well, that was the 47 grand. You got $2 million for LGBT activism in Guatemala, $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. There's a long list here, but there were problems here where people said, why are we doing this?
And listen, I'm not advocating that we should continue programs that aren't working. I was a governor. I believe in making government effective and assessing and evaluating what we're doing and how to do it better. But taking a chainsaw to all of our foreign assistance programs over a weekend and eliminating 84% of them is not a strategic and thoughtful approach to how we need to evaluate what's working and what's not working.
But now it's under Secretary Rubio, isn't it? And they're going to analyze what programs go forward and what don't. And so the $1.5 million for, you know, electric vehicles in Vietnam didn't seem like it was going to work for them.
And maybe we should not be continuing that. That's not what I'm arguing. What I'm arguing is we have not had a real thoughtful effort to do that. And despite, you know, we went from thousands of employees down to 250 who are doing foreign assistance.
Senator, you've heard the criticism, how a lot of things were getting run through USAID, that people were making money, and there were allegations of even kickbacks coming the other way. You've heard that, I know. There's allegations for years.
Well, I've heard those rumors, but I haven't seen a thoughtful and thorough assessment of how those programs were working and what was working and what wasn't. All I've heard is those kinds of allegations that you're talking about. And when we reduce our foreign assistance programs, which have been the hallmark of soft power for the United States for over 60 years, we do it over a weekend, and we eliminate 84% of those programs, like PEPFAR, for example, which has been Well, no, it's not back in.
400 million
No,
of the rescission is taken out, right?
But that does not address all of the prevention aspects of the PEPFAR program. Those are still eliminated.
Your concern is that we are pulling back and these programs keep China out of these places.
China was already labeling the United States with many of their Indo-Pacific countries as an unreliable partner. Within months, China has moved into many of those programs in way and picked those up and are now providing them in ways that make the United States look bad and provide a benefit to China. I don't think that's in our interest. I think having the United States fail to participate in international organizations is not a good thing because, as I said with Mike Waltz at the hearing today, we need to be at the table.
Does Mike Waltz get through as UN ambassador?
I assume he does. I didn't get a chance to hear all of the questioning today, but I would think that he does.
You are set to retire when your term expires.
I am.
You know, there's a thought about the Democratic Party and the way it's going. You've been someone who's worked across the aisle a lot. The focus, it seems, the power or the emotion, the passion, seems to be on the left. Mamdani in New York, meeting with AOC here in D.C. Where do you see it going? New Hampshire Democrats seem to be a bit different, but how do you see your party going?
You know, most of my constituents who I talk to in New Hampshire are people who want to see the problems in this country solved. And they believe that in order to solve them, we need to work together to do that. What I hear often at home is, why can't you all just work together in Washington to address the problems that this country faces? I think that's where most voters are. That's certainly where I am. I think that's where elected officials should be. It should be around trying to address the issues that we face, around compromising, around finding ways to move forward together, not partisan divides.
So why are you throwing in the towel?
Because I'm thinking about, I'm going to be 80 by the end of my term. I'm thinking about what I want to do for the next 10 years of my life. And I think a little more flexibility. And, you know, it's time to move aside for the next generation.
You've been governor, you've been senator, you've been kind to us. Thank you for coming in.
Nice to be with you.